Yeah, I grew up watching, there was a TV adaptation of Pride and Prejudice when I was growing up with Colin Firth and Jennifer Ely and Alison Steadman and yeah, a whole load of amazing British actors, and I grew up watching that every Sunday night with my mum. Also, Emma Thompson is a huge inspiration for me, and so the Ang Lee Sense and Sensibility that she wrote was also something that I was very familiar with, and something that Amma Asante, the director, also, she recommended I rewatch for this, just to help with the sisterly relationship with Elizabeth Sarah Gadden. And I did read the books growing up a little bit in my teens, and I lived in Bath for a short period. I did a TV series in Bath a few years ago, so yeah, I don't know whether you had Jane Austen in Australia.
No, but I mean, what's interesting about this film is that it is a Jane Austen-esque story, but it's not fiction, it's a true story. So that's what drew me to it. It's completely different. You know, it's not like it's playing on the fictionalized characters of the world of Jane Austen. These are real people, and it actually reverses all of the Jane Austen convention entirely.
Right.
Yeah, even I feel more like I'm Elizabeth Bennet. You're Mr. Darcy.
So.
We always tell my story first. Yeah, I mean, I came the regular way. I mean, I was actually meant to play a Nazi, and then that film fell apart. And so the next day, this came up straight away after it. So I was much happier about this film. Yeah, I mean, I read the script, I adored it, and then the next day, and then I was in it. Yeah.
My route to it was a bit more convoluted. I first met the producer, Damien Jones, a long time ago when I was first out of drama school, and I had a 2-line role in a film that he was doing. And he had told me about the painting, and I think there had been an exhibition at Kenwood House, and I was living not very far away in North London in Highgate, and I couldn't believe that I didn't know about the painting, and that I'd been to the house and been to Hampstead Heath and had no idea about Dido. So I went to the exhibition, or I tried to go to the exhibition, but it had finished, so I just ended up buying a postcard of the painting from the gift shop, and I hung on to that. And at that point, there was no script or director, and then years passed, and I kept the postcard. I had a copy of it in my diary and a copy of it in my bedroom, sort of blue tacked to the wall. And then I met Amma for something completely different, also set in Nazi Germany. A project called Where Hands Touch, which fell apart, but yeah, and then more time passed, and I was working in America, and then Damien Jones did The Iron Lady with Meryl Streep, and that sort of got more momentum, and then Amma was on board to direct, and so I flew back to meet with her, and then came back again, and a few more months passed, and then I flew back and auditioned for her, and then finally got the part, I think, when I was in LA doing a TV series. So.
The whole time she was carrying the postcard around for like 2 years of the picture.
It was very dog-eared by that point. Absolutely, I mean, that's been the fascinating thing just in these last couple of weeks, is people's different responses to the painting. I think everybody endows it with their own experience, but for me, I saw this very vivacious girl. I just loved the fact that the expression on Dido's face was, she just had this sort of bright-eyed look about her that sort of seemed to be sort of searing out of the painting, and for me, she sort of looked mischievous and confident, and there was a sense of movement about her, as opposed to like the typical paintings of the day where everyone looks very demure and no one smiles, or there was just something kind of refreshing about her facial expression. So I was sort of drawn to her as a person, and as I say, that personality that seemed to come through the picture.
It almost feels like she's running out of the painting and into the future.
I hadn't heard that one. That's a good one.
I think for me the most interesting thing about the picture is the historical aspect and the connection that the creatives made, going that this girl who was living in Lord Mansfield's house, we don't know how much influence she would have actually had on the case and on him personally, but of course you can't deny that she would have influenced him, and we know for a fact that he left her money in his will, so she was a very loved figure in that family, and I just love the idea that this woman influenced him. Yeah.
And also the sister dynamic as well. I think,
Yeah.
like Amma
Oh,
often talks
absolutely.
about, like, historically, this was quite unique for the time. If traditionally, if a woman of colour or a person of colour in a painting, they would usually be depicted in a very subservient role,
Right.
somewhat like as a pet or as a status symbol.
She's higher than her.
Yeah, and it's Elizabeth that is reaching out to Dido affectionately, and as we show in the film, traditionally for that period, it would normally be the black servant sort of giving status to the white lead of the painting. So I think that Amma found that in her research of the art history of the time to be pretty unique for the period.
Now, Sam, you've got the sort of unique challenge in the movie of playing a character that has sort of a modern take that's very unique to the time. Talk about that. Because you're bringing sort of a modern idea to a time when nobody had that thought. And what are the challenges there, and what was the challenge in playing a character like that?
I think that was one of the most appealing parts of the character, was that he is this modern guy with modern sensibilities, trapped in this period of time, and he kind of felt very uncomfortable in this world, and he was constantly trying to change it. And the world, the costumes, everything informed that while you were in it, because these people are like wrapped up in this society, wrapped up in these stockings, and I'm not wearing a corset, but in his hair, in a cravat, and essentially he's hitting his head against this brick wall, and he gets more and more frustrated. And Amma was definitely leading me down that route where this kid is getting more and more emotional because he can't work out how to change it, and he has to learn how to use the conventions of the time to be able to make change, and only by learning through Lord Mansfield and being able to contain his emotions as a lesson he learned. Yeah, so I thought that was a fascinating arc, and especially a guy who gets everything that he wants in like 3 sentences at the end of the film was such an appealing and interesting arc to try and work out how to go there. So yeah.
No.
The biggest thing I think that Amma was always impressing on all of us was the heart of the story, because I think, occasionally the danger when you're dealing with such weighty issues like race, class, gender, and hot topics like slavery, is not to feel like you're giving people a history lesson or getting, even though these are very... So she was very conscious to approach it from an emotional, human level and to find the heart in the story. We talked a lot about humiliation and the nuances of humiliation on a daily basis, the racism that goes on in society, in a genteel society that is more like the conversational slips and things like that. We talked about those and receiving those impacts and what that meant and how that builds. We talked a lot about Dido's evolution from this naive, accepting young girl to this confident woman, and that she goes through this sort of political awakening that's sort of facilitated by John Divinier, and it's a meeting of minds as well as a meeting of hearts, and that's his, he's like the catalyst for her to sort of become her full self. So it was, because we shoot the whole thing completely out of context, it was very much kind of plotting when is it Dido the girl and when is it Dido the woman, and making sure to hold on to, which part of the journey she's on. We've talked about this, and I probably think it's the scene in Vauxhall Gardens where she makes the decision to break away from Oliver, and then...
Yeah, when John says, "You're alone," and we had to, because I didn't really understand that point in the script, and Emma explained that, for a lady of the time to go off by herself, and be completely alone, unchaperoned, was one of the most shocking things that she could do, particularly a lady of status. And so that is a huge, it doesn't feel so huge in our time, But to see a woman do that at that period was a massive, massive choice. So, yeah. Emma actually stopped us from getting too sexy. She kept saying, like, "You're Ken and Barbie, there's nothing down there. There's nothing down there. It's the wrong period."
It didn't work.
Yeah.
I think also it's kind of, because of the conventions of the day, and even actually to be, kissing in the middle of the street would probably be, I think we've taken a little bit of artistic license, but to reach that point in the story, I think that everybody feels like that they have earned that climactic moment. And I mean, for me, I think that the costumes and the etiquette and the social manners of the time really help the romance of the story, because I think something that's somewhat lost today is that restraint. And when you have that restraint, then I think the explosive moments or the moments of physical contact can become potentially that much more electric, because you've rationed them. Yeah.
Well, obviously, I do a lot of scenes with Tom Wilkinson, which was incredibly intimidating. And he is like a force of nature in himself, like an incredibly nice man and so talented. But I found it so useful because John Davinier is in awe of Lord Mansfield, and to have that kind of same sense of me as an actor looking up to this older actor I've always admired. So it was very useful to have these figures around you all the time, that you're trying to stand up to. But they were so generous all the time, and everyone was so passionate about the story that it was, we had some wild dinners in the Isle of Man, and getting to know the stories and the history behind those guys' careers. Yeah.
I mean, for me, I'd actually worked with Penelope Wilton before on stage, when we were both in Hamlet, and I was playing Ophelia and she was playing Gertrude in London. But we barely had any scenes together, and obviously in Hamlet, for Ophelia and Gertrude, things don't go so well. And it was really, really wonderful to work with Penelope, because she's such a comedic genius. I mean, her sense of comic timing is so wonderful, and to work with her on a female-centric story was just amazing, and she's so humble. And Emily Watson, I mean, like I've looked up to her. I mean, her stillness and her sense of truth. She's so grounded, and I really learnt from example by working with her. And similarly, Tom, kind of intimidating initially, but actually was wonderful. And Amma worked a lot with developing that father-daughter dynamic with us, and he really was the sort of father figure of the set, and really brought so much gravitas, I think, to a potentially girly kind of world. His story and his, the legal case and the weight that he brings was just, and also I should say Miranda Richardson, who is just phenomenal, and being able to work with her and have a scene where I have to really stand up to her, it's like, oh my god, it's Miranda, I'm going to have to really up my game. But I learned so much from working with them all, and everybody was so down to earth. Yeah, I mean, thank you so much. That was quite overwhelming to have everyone standing up. It's been amazing, actually. I think the fascinating thing about this journey, for me particularly, is that you do the film that you, or the script that you read, and then you have the film that you shoot, and then there's this abyss of time, and then suddenly it sort of comes back into focus. And I think that I'm realising, and I knew it at the time, but I'm realising that this is a film that has so many layers, that people really bring themselves to the theatre, and everybody connects on a different level depending on their own personal experience.
Well, it's a film
Completely changes a perspective of history, and for people to see that a biracial woman is not playing a servant, she's not a downtrodden character, she's a woman of status, and this woman is a real woman in history. I hope that will completely change people's perspective on history, and also can change some perspective on themselves. I mean, I know some very close friends of mine that saw themselves reflected on the screen, and it's been incredible to see people's reaction and how personal people have taken it. And,
that these are things that we're still exploring, and is ever present in the media, and the idea not just of race and gender, but just identity, full stop. I think regardless of your ethnicity, regardless of your background, I think that everybody has moments in life where they're not sure where they fit in, and they don't feel comfortable with who they are, and hopefully the inspiring message is that Dido is all of those things to begin with, but that it's okay, and accepting every facet of who you are can be a journey.
Right.
but that it's possible, and